Welcome back to Strive 365, where that's exactly what we want to do and provide some value, whether it be physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. We want to help you strive 365 days of the year. On today's episode, a very special guest, one of my really, really good friends. I was just telling before we got on here that it's like Christmas for me just to hang out with this guy. But he doesn't live here in Rochester anymore. He lives down in Florida. But I knew he would bring value not only, of course, to me, I'm selfish sometimes, but also to the world here. So, Kurt, why don't you introduce yourself and tell the folks why you're here today?
Yo, what's up, Justin? Thanks for that intro, man.
For sure.
My name is Kurt Bednarcyk. I am a perpetual student of the universe, and I'm a movement and leadership coach, as Justin said, based in Bradenton, Florida, since May of this year.
Yeah, and
how much more you want me to give? Brother?
No, I mean, so why don't we talk about that real quick? So this guy I've met, let me give a brief more. So this guy and I met in the fitness world, CrossFit. We had a lot of similarities. Hit it off right off the bat. I would hope you would agree with that. Please agree with that. No, I'm kidding. But we hit it off right off the bat. Just had a lot in common. Looking just to improve people's lives through movement, whatever modality it might be, mentally and physically, even emotionally, and then so that's where we met. But then recently moved down to Florida. So why don't you talk about that? Like, what are you guys doing down there? What kind of services are offering down there, and why you guys decided to relocate?
Sure. So the facility we're opening is called Origin Health and Wellness, and we're offering an alternative to self-care. So people will ask, well, do you have any competition down there? And I say the competition is the 3 F's: food, phone, and pharmacy.
I love that.
Right. So this comes from about 20 years of being in the coaching game, like you had mentioned, CrossFit, more the physical world, and recognizing that we are increasingly poor at feeling uncomfortable. And that is coupled with an increase in the availability of those 3 F's, which again is food, phone, and pharmacy. The common behavior is when we feel discomfort, we typically will grab one of those things. And long story short, we are offering a community wellness opportunity. So we're having saunas, cold tubs, breath work, movement, basically all the things that you and I have talked about and discovered over the last decade or so, or even more.
Yeah. And so for those that like, I'm going to put it a different way, and if you want to change this, but it sounds like that you are aiding people in practicing positive discomfort.
That's definitely one of the aspects of it, right? Specifically with the contrast therapy, the heat and the ice. We apply that as an intentional stressor, as a way to practice dealing with uncomfortable situations. So whether those are physical, mental, emotional. In my experience and through my business partner's experience, it is a transferable skill. So absolutely, we're engaging with what could potentially be uncomfortable. We're regulating our nervous system to be able to respond better to those situations.
So obviously I do a lot, if not most, if not all of these things, but there's still a large percentage of the population, including the people within my house, that call me crazy or that look at these things as weird. And why would you take cold showers and cold baths? Why would you walk on rocks? Why would you do a lot of these things? So share with the novice person listening to this, like, why would discomfort be a good thing?
So for me, there are 2 aspects to this. One is just the familiarity piece. So it's just, like I said, we want to practice in a controlled setting facing adversity. And so it may sound counterintuitive, but on purpose, if we're doing something hard when we can control it and developing our ability to withstand that stressor, I can really only share my own experience and to the people that I've coached. But what happens is when you are faced with adversity in life, you feel just much more prepared for that.
Yes. So
And
go ahead.
then on the other side of the equation, a big piece of what we're doing is the community aspect. So it's now we're doing something hard, but associating it with a tribe and community of people who are supporting you in that as well. So now we're creating neural connections about that people are behind us. We can do something hard because we have the support of the group.
I mean, that's like super important when you have the support, especially when we work with people, even on a one-on-one basis, just having that support, like working with husbands or wives, if the other person supports them, yes, we can go off data, but I can just go off personal experience. Whenever everyone in the household supports one of my couples, there is quicker and better success rate, no matter what they're doing, whether it be weight loss or rehab or whatever. And so I love that you guys are doing that community to have support, especially challenging things. And I think some of the personal stories are some of the best things. You shared yours. Excuse me. I'll share mine. A lot of things I'll do. I'll share one, the cold showers, the cold baths. I've been doing that for probably, man, it's 2023 now, a long time. Probably at least 2014, 15-ish, consistently, I would say. Prior to that, I was aware of it. It wasn't that I was aware of it. I pushed back against it. So for those that are listening, like, why would I do that? That was me. Like, why would I do that? A lot of the people I asked questions, I looked at research, and I asked fellow people that are already doing it. And early on, I was finding that a lot of people were doing it for the physical, like ultra marathoners, heavy weightlifters, football players, athletes of all kinds. And they're finding a physical benefit. And then I was looking at research and I wasn't seeing enough data for me to justify jumping my butt in cold ass water. Let's be bluntly honest here. So I was like, you know what? The best study is the ones you do on yourself. I've said it before. I've done it before. So I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to give myself, I can't remember the time frame. I'm pretty sure I'm going to do it for like that 3 to 4 week phase, somewhere around there, and see what happens. And I'm going to play around different ways, but stay pretty consistent. I was going to do it in the morning. I was going to do it pretty early on within my morning routine. I was only going to do it for like 2 to 3 minutes. Anyways, long story short, right away, I was way more awake. So the first benefit was like, wow, I don't even need caffeine. I just need a cold shower. And it wasn't just a short burst. It was lasting. The other benefit, after doing it for, again, I can't remember this time frame, it was so long ago, but it was short. It was less than a week. I started noticing the mental benefits, and I don't really, not regularly or anything do I struggle with mental health issues. I have had my bout, and including recently, which might be on a future episode, but I don't really regularly deal with that. So, but I just noticed like more clarity, just like, I've always been a pretty positive guy. It was just another layer and another level. So I would say the mental health benefits. And then I would say, like you mentioned earlier, was handling stress better later, something along lines like that. I would say after doing it for like 5 or 6 months, it was half a year, I was just noticing consistently like how I could just handle stress later in the day better by what you talked about, that controlled stress. Now, there's a number of different ways you can do this. So like, for example, in the morning, I'll do a little hot tub meditation, Bible reading. That's my thing for like 10 minutes. And I'll jump in a cold shower. I don't always have the opportunity, or take the opportunity, I guess is a better way to put it, at night to jump in the hot tub. But when I do, I sleep increasingly better. So the hot cold contrast, there are benefits to that. I will say, you haven't really touched on it, and I know this isn't practicing, but this is one of these things that we do. At night, I've been imploring for about a year now, just red glasses, and seeing a benefit in just the way my body calms down, getting away from technology. And you talked about it. We're looking for comfort from our food, from our phone, from our pharmacy, talking about these things, because at the end of the day, we all want to feel good and joyful. And there's ways to do that. One is, and one of the better ways, is positive discomfort, or these controllable stressors that you talk about. But, we need to embrace this, because if we're always searching for this and the things that you talk about, the 3 F's, it's just going to be a downward spiral. Do you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. The 3 F's, as we keep referring to, is these are quick dopamine hits. So one could argue that, yes, they do feel good for about 5 seconds. right? We can just get a quick distraction from feeling discomfort, and that can come from just any level of stress, physical, mental, emotional. We worry about the future, we regret the past, whatever the case. These things are available distractions that do feel good in the moment. It feels better than the thing that you were experiencing before, right? That's even said, you mentioned even caffeine. That's a pharmacy thing that the world is choosing or creating the reality in their through their actions that I need caffeine every morning. When my argument and through my experience is that if we're aware and we have the opportunity to go for something that is a sustainable dopamine increaser, so when we notice the tendency or the urge to reach for one of the three F's, and instead we have an arsenal of tools we can use to create lasting joy and dopamine, then I'm saying, hell yeah, let's do that. And ultimately, it is about the experience. You touched upon the reading research. Well, there's evidence based, and there's something to be said about the science, right? But I imagine collectively we've just gotten too far away from another form of evidence, which is your experience. And so what I try to embody in my day-to-day life is the awareness and to grab onto these experiences when I can and just try to lead by example for others and let them know that there is an alternative.
Yeah, lead by example. That's such a key. You just talked about that, so I'll touch on that point. But there's a couple others I want to touch on because you're a father. For those that don't know, I'm a father of three. I write currently 13, 10, and 7. And one thing I learned early on, not only my children, my wife, my clients, the people around me, people are watching, especially with technology. People are watching, and you may not even know it. So, especially with children, because I think that's the key to the future, what we do with our youth, and they definitely are watching, and they are absorbing more by everything you say, you do, by what we tell them. I could tell my kid to put his clothes away or clean up his room or do this or that. But when they actively watch me doing it myself, they're like, well, if dad, I don't know what they're actually saying, but I imagine they're picking up on things I do because guess what? When I do things, because I am not perfect, they seem to easily mirror my bad behaviors, and I know that they'll mirror my good ones because I see that as well. So I agree with you on that. And then your experience, like you can go by all the data and all the research, and it's good to check on it. But as long as whatever it is isn't life threatening, check it out yourself, try it yourself, but give yourself time to really explore it and experiment with it to see if it benefits you. Again, we're talking about healthy things here that can help you and others around you. And then one other thing you said, I need it. And I hear that so much, and I'm sure I've said it in different things, and it's something I check myself and have the self-awareness around them. But I always tell people, especially clients, if they get to the point of I needing something, like I need my coffee or I can't survive, just watch your language. Because if this is me talking just openly, if you get to the point of where you can't survive without it, it's a problem. It's an addictive thing. And it's like, I need my ice cream after every dinner. And we want to go down that. I need my coffee before I get up. It depends on what it is. Like I would say I need movement, but it doesn't have to be in a gym or with a weight. It could just be me climbing a tree. And I believe that, but it's all relative. But I will say if there's a thing out there, like you talked about with the 3Fs, if you feel you need certain things, just analyze it. And if it gets to the point, is it still healthy? So wouldn't you agree? Or what would you say about that when people get to that point where they're saying, I need it with certain things?
Yeah, well, I like that you said that you can just check your language. Connecting that to parenting, our language and the influence of people around us is as impactful on our perception of life as I imagine almost anything else. So when the man who says he can and the man who says he can't, are both right. When someone says they need something, they're right. And so the language piece is very easily to translate, where the pen and paper come in. But I do agree with you that there are also other addictions that we create outside of just the mental and language landscape. And yeah, when something becomes uh, you become dependent on a substance or a behavior, especially one that's not serving you, but even positive ones, those are vulnerabilities now. Those become a resistance point to taking life as it comes, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and that has actually happened to me, and I imagine you have this experience on the what would you consider healthy behavior side, right? If you even so here's a good example from my life several years ago. Get very into healthy eating, right? And eating clean and feeling great, right? You experience the benefits of those things. And then when the time would come to have a social event with my family or other friend groups who aren't as interested in this behavior, now it creates an anxiety for me because what kind of food is there going to be for me to eat there, right? And so you're absolutely right. What you were saying is the dependency becomes a vulnerability, and that's non-specific to healthy or unhealthy behaviors. I'm going to describe them that way.
You
I'm a
mentioned,
big flow person.
yeah, you mentioned a good point. Like parties, get-togethers. I mean, we just got over that. We're in a new year, and it's one of the biggest challenges for people that want to, eat clean, as you put it, or eat healthy or whatever. And I get that. And then there's this part of people that are in that want to still feel part of the group and not feel like an outsider. I have we went to a New Year's Eve party with basically this party, I would know people, but it was mainly my wife's groups of friends. And it's a New Year's Eve party. So, of course, inebriation and foods of certain things. And I, for those that aren't listening, and I'm sure we'll do another episode about this, but I have no appendix. So I am very sensitive to a lot of different foods because my body can't regulate gut bacteria. Long story short, it's not like I eat clean because I want to be healthy. I do, but it's more because I want to feel really good. And certain foods just don't make me feel that way to the point that it can make me grumpy because of gut. So anyways, I go into these things knowing that like a lot of it I can't drink or eat or don't want to because of the way I want to feel. But I also want to get together with these people just for my wife. And so like I went in with the attitude of this party. And this is a little bit on the subject because how do people like us or how do people that are trying to live a healthier lifestyle or live a certain way that might not mesh with a group around. And so I went in with it. One, I want to support my wife, love her, opportunity to hang out with her. It's about changing the mindset around it. And then also I looked at it twofold. One, I could meet some really cool people that I could positively affect, maybe even get a client, but this wasn't about business. It was just about creating good, healthy conversation and feeling a part of it. So, there were actually options there that I could kind of like take this and take that and still make, things that work within me without feeling like an outsider. So it was all about wrapping my head around that situation for New Year's. And it was a great time. And I made some good connections, exchanged some good numbers, and surprised myself when I came home and just got to know some people by asking a lot of good questions. But one of the things when I reached out to you, alternative subjects was, man, we could talk about a million things, and I didn't want this turned into like a Joe Rogan podcast for like 8 hours, which it could easily do between the two of us. But you briefly mentioned serenity prayer, and that could cover a lot. And you shared some things with me, but I'm going to leave the floor here for you to kind of introduce that and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So just for some context, I would imagine most of the listeners are familiar with the Serenity Prayer, or at least some version of that. And the one that I like to use is, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah, and for those that are not familiar, I mean, you could have said this, but it's typically things with AA, correct?
Yeah, honestly,
But
I'm
it's with
unsure
anything, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm unsure where the the origin of that is pun intended. So sitting in my origin health and wellness.
I just know some
Well,
people who've been through AA, and it's one of the things. You don't have to be a person of faith, but it's something that they give them to read, to really just reflect on, to move into a, an sobriety lifestyle. But anyways, carry on.
100%. Actually, I would argue that you do need to be a person of faith.
Okay, cool.
It has to be your own. It has to be your own faith, right? But
Got it.
to embody serenity, courage, and wisdom, specifically the courage piece, is going to take some faith, right? Um, but to circle back, that is something that's been ringing in my head often recently, and I've been in the coaching, strength training, personal development game for nearly 20 years now, and it continues to come back to those three things. Like what else could be more important than your ability to recognize things that are outside of your control, things that are inside of your control, and actually take the reins of that and know which is which, so that we can direct our energy and attention towards the things we can control. Uh, that's if I had to write the shortest book that I could, or on my deathbed, that's about that's about as simple as I could make it for the reason for living. As a
Man.
bias, of course, it's not necessarily right or wrong. It's just how I feel. What else to life is there?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a book, as you know, called Purpose Through Pain, and I did that in the idea that we to relate to people that have been through pain and trauma. And I know very early on what I thought about life, and it got to the point where, like, man, what is the point of me going through this unless it's to use it as a tool and to grow me, to challenge me, and find even purpose through it to help other people through it. And I say it a little bit in my book, but I say it regularly because it's like one of those things that just stuck. I was around the age of 12, and I was like, man, if there's just one thing I could do, and that's just gonna bring joy and happiness. I don't even care about the money that I make. Uh, and the older I got, I realized there's a reason behind that. There's parts of the brain, like a dopamine hit in a way, almost like eating chocolate cake or anything else, or getting a massage, or even having sex, like serving, helping, giving. We're built to serve and help, and and I think the ultimate goal, would agree, is people want to find purpose in different things, but why do we do that in the first place? Joy. And we're not talking about happiness here, but just to feel good. And so we're searching for those in the three F's. To circle it back to why I brought this up, the three F's. But there's greater ways to do that. And I really believe it's from coming from within. And that's where we've talked about, like creating space from distraction, some of the things you sent me, peace with where there is in this journey. So how do you do that in a world that is so, as soon as you wake up, full of distraction? I mean, my kids, like, I have to really just like create a space for them because they don't fully understand, because they gravitate towards the distraction. I have some very intelligent, very good children who still, I could tell them a million times and I can even display it, but it's so easy because you can see it in a kid. They want to feel really good. And sometimes sneaking that iPad out of my computer bag at 11 at night and staying up, and then me finding it under their pillow, that's not healthy, right? And so we have to find other ways to do around that. So how do we do that? Talk about that, man.
Well, how do we do anything,
Right?
right? Habits are difficult to form, but my bias, and it sounds like it's yours. One of the habits that we ought to be cultivating, or could be, to serve us, is creating space. And that could be through meditation, or it could be through sauna, through nature. There's a number of things. When I think about habits, if this is something that, if you guys are listening right now and you're thinking, man, my life is so hectic, there's so much chaos going on, I could never meditate, that's an extra thing, or can never quiet my mind down. For me, a habit comes down to three pieces. First is a routine. And so I'm a big proponent of a morning routine. So no matter what you need to be up for, I believe it's possible to set your alarm 30 minutes earlier. It would have been difficult for for your wife in the past. That's a pretty early wake up, but
Yeah, for those that don't know, my wife was waking up at like, gosh, 2:30 because she had to leave the house by about 4 a.m. She was a morning anchor. But now, man, she is sleeping in for her. She's not getting up to like 6 a.m. And get this, it was so hard for her to mentally, physically, all of it, to really get in movement pattern. But she's waking up most mornings and doing movement. And it's
cool.
a Peloton bike or something simple, but that's huge. And so it goes into the circadian rhythm, which we could always talk about, but just like how important that is. And now she's getting in a routine. So continue.
Yeah, 100%. Well, yeah. So the routine piece, and yeah, circadian rhythms. That's a lot. Why I have a reason for why I'm biased towards the morning. But ultimately, you could craft your own thing. If it's just waking up and, as you mentioned, reading Bible verses or listening to a guided meditation. The routine and having that structured in your day will set the tone for the remainder of the day. And so, do you want to chat more about routine, or should I go on to the others?
No, I mean, yeah. So I'll quickly touch on that. Like, think about your routine, and of course, what our bias would be considered a healthy routine. And I mean that, like, you've seen it, you've heard it, but it's still hard if you've created a routine on accident. Like, people have created routines on accident, right? Like, as soon as they roll over, they start searching their social media, and you hear it all the time. Like, I'm not going to sit here and preach like this is something new listeners are listening to for the first. Oh, really? I shouldn't do that. And there's reasoning behind that. You're already creating distraction. You're already filling the mind. You're creating a busy, almost like chaotic atmosphere. This is my perspective on the idea. And I'll tell you why I can talk on this is because I definitely have had, I grew up being diagnosed with ADHD and a number of other things. So it's definitely been work to practice this. So I'm automatically drawn to that. And I would have thought sitting in a hot tub or cold bath or whatever, breathing, meditating, prayer, getting quiet time with myself. For somebody like me, that was ridiculously hard to quiet the mind. A million times a million thoughts want to come into my head, and it's still a challenge. But I'll tell you this, we're talking years ago, but early on, when I would think that when I'm waking up and I'm still kind of tired, that sitting with my eyes closed, meditating, wherever that might be, and just breathing would tire me more. It actually calmed my mind and gave me like a calming energy. This was before the cold baths and everything, and it really changed my perspective on breath work and meditation and these things as far as being an energizing thing. Because your mind, I always like to say, look at your body. And if we're sitting here working out all the time, lifting weights, our muscles are going to be sore. No one's going to do that. But we sit here from the sun up to sundown, working our minds. And I look at the mind, even though it's an organ, it's like a muscle. And if we're sitting here working it out, looking at the phone, playing with this, looking at videos, that's working it. And then we're doing that right before we go to bed. That's working it. Like, we're going to work it to death literally sooner than we like, and we need to give it a break. And I'll tell you one thing I do pretty regularly, but I listen to the body. This one's not necessarily routine unless it has to be. So the only piece out there on routine is be flexible with it, do stuff, but also be flexible. For example, if we're on some of these camping trips, be flexible in that I have a morning routine, but if the kids want to get up early and have breakfast so we can go for a hike, maybe I'll cut it short, but I'll do something that just helps me. Maybe it's just 5 minutes of meditation instead of 10 or something. So be flexible that it won't stress you out. Because I know people that are so strict to it that it stresses them out and actually causes friction in their relationship. So keep that in mind. But something that I am flex with is sometimes like a early afternoon, like today, I might even do this since for those that don't know, we're recording this around noon, that 2:00, because I got a pretty busy afternoon. I've got clients and I'm coaching my daughter's hockey. I need some downtime. So I'll purposely schedule 10 minutes or 15 minutes of downtime where I'm meditating, breathing, maybe even a little nappy poo, whatever, just to like give my brain a break. And since I do that when I feel I need it, my afternoons are successful and they soar. Soars and like I'm not sore, but like they soar like a eagle, and they go really well because I intentionally decided to take a break, and that's where I'll go on. And you're familiar with this, but I say it over and over again, and this is personal, that it's still a struggle, but there is so much, and there can be so much productivity when you rest, physically, mentally, emotionally, all those things. So that's going to be my touch. But just develop things that you like. Like my routine started with 5 minutes of movement. This is years ago. And then I started adding pieces, and to give people a little bit of idea what I do a little bit of movement, and maybe share what you do real quick and then we'll move on. But I do a little bit of movement. I do, I like to meditate. I like to move, sweat, I kind of say. And I drink some water. I get into a cold bath and a hot tub. And then I read and I write, and I get all that done in less than an hour. And I do that before the kids wake up. For those that kids, I would highly suggest that, because this is the one time a day where I'm not having to attend to a work thing, other people basically. And I can really dedicate to myself from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. So that's my brief thing. So I read, I write, I move, I drink water. So what about you?
Totally. Well, maybe I'll bring some of that stuff in, but let's shake up the routine right now and create some serenity for the listener.
Okay.
The routine that I would recommend is this is I would imagine this applies to almost everybody, not yourself, but you've been in the game for a long time, right?
Yeah, almost 20 years like you. We're pretty similar in that. So yeah.
Yeah. Let's even just say the routine is that you don't look at your phone for the first 30 minutes of your day.
I like that. 30 minutes.
30 minutes, and fill that space with anything else. The other two pieces you need for a habit are environment and accountability. So here's the other couple pieces of that. So with respect to your phone, set the environment up to make that easy. So now put your phone in another room, or at the very least across the room. If you can use an alarm clock, even better. So now your phone doesn't even need to be on for the first 30 minutes of the day.
Yeah, and we don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but there is enough data to back up why your cell phone shouldn't be so close to your head. You can look that up later, but 100%. Just know it's not the best for you to be really close to your head in any circumstance, let alone while sleeping.
Right. So creating space through the habits, the routine, you've got it. 30 minutes each morning, no phone. You've got the environment. You figured out how to put your phone somewhere else. And then also fill that with the thing you do want to be doing in the morning. So if that is meditation, have your meditation space set up. So you just walk out there and you're doing it. That's the environment piece. You're prepared to land in the present moment.
Love it.
And then accountability is really what we circle back when we talked about the tribe and having a community of people who support you. I imagine it's a little bit easier for your wife to have made this shift. A, because her schedule changed, but B, she has your support and accountability.
100%. Yeah.
So what type of people are around you? Do they support, or do they hold you accountable to be better? So with this just specific habit that I'm challenging every one of the listeners, 30 minutes of the morning, no phone, create your environment to do the alternative thing, and then tell somebody else about it that cares about you. Put some skin in the game, right? Create the accountability. Say, hey, will you text me 3 days from now to ask me how I'm doing with this? That's my first place to start if you want to create serenity in your life.
I love that. And if you share it, so I'm only gonna bring this up because I had this conversation because somebody wanted to do something like this, and they shared it with me, but they said they shared it with some other people, and they kind of laughed or made fun of or thought it was silly. And I just encouraged them because I said, I didn't tell them to go, those people are stupid. I didn't criticize. I just said, you want to be around people. If there's things you're doing that you know will improve not only your life, but this is a father as well, but your wife's life, your kid's life, because it's improving your mental state, your physical state, things like that, then you want to share with people that are going to maybe do it alongside with you, but at least support you. Like, I know I can call you up, Kurt, and you're going to give me some constructive feedback on whatever I decide to do, but you're going to support me, even if you know I might fail at it because you love me, but you might also give me some tips along the way to try to hope that I don't. And like, I fully support their business venture because I know they're amazing people and they're going to do great things and their heart's in the right place. And that's what you want to look for and be around. And it might be hard at first, depending on what your circle is. And we all know, like, you are the 5 people or whatever the number is. You are what you surround yourself around with. But just be careful with that. But definitely, the accountability is huge because our mind, we can, like, if we're like, oh, I'll just be here. And it's something I do with my kids where at the beginning of the year, I just wanted to write down some things that they wanted to accomplish this year. It didn't have to be big, just something. And because they do have some things they wanted to accomplish. So, like, I told my son, write it down. And then my daughter mentioned something. I was like, write it down, and it's like, and then share it with me. Oh, but we don't want to, Dad. I was like, well, if you write it down, it just becomes more real instead of just up here, because you could always say, oh, check yourself out of it, make excuses, reasons why you're not going to do it. When you write it down, you put it up and you see it, it makes it more real and it makes it more attainable. But then when you share with me, I can hold you accountable in a positive way. I could cheer you on. I give you support. I give you, if I got to drive you or drop you off, because now I know your goal is to skate more for my son who's a hockey player, or whatever it might be. If you want to go play at RIT, which is actually a goal, it's like, bro, you got to get some ice time in. Then, like, who's going to take you to the rink? If I don't know that's your goal, then I can't be sitting here being your taxi cab driver or whatever it might be. The point is, like, find your accountability and share it and write it down, because those people are going to support you and they're going to help you, or at least be there. And I have people that are nearby. I have a buddy of mine that holds me accountable on some business things in Kentucky. So they're around. And if you can't, maybe you can even reach out to Kurt or me, and we'll definitely be cheering you on. So for sure, man, for sure. Good stuff. So we're running a little here short, but I wanted to cover a couple more things. And one of the things you said, creating a vision of a life that is better than right now. I think that goes in with Strive 365 pretty well. Talk on that, man. Courage.
Yeah. Well, you literally just mentioned it about your children. The first step of courage is, or one of the things that does demand courage, but is quite easy to do, is to write your goals down. Because that ultimately gives you a framework for what you do want. And there's one part of life which is finding peace in the present moment. And then there's the other part, which is to continually strive for better. And I like the theme of your podcast here. That's just how I frame that goal. I imagine it's create a vision of your life that is better than the life you have right now. Because I think that's increasingly less common. For the same reasons we talked about. It's just we're very distracted. And so a lot of people are focused on why they can't do something, or they keep the goal in their head without having the stones to write it down on a piece of paper, and then start doing the small thing, start rolling the rock up the hill. Yeah. But ultimately, if you are striving 365, you only need to push it a little bit every day.
Yeah. Right. Like, it's just, it's little. And if you take one step back, you can still get back on it. There's this, I don't know why this came to my mind, but I'm going to share it. Oh, what happened? Oh, there you are.
That's just outside.
Oh, you disappeared for a second. So anyways, one drill that my son does in hockey, it's called it's 1-2-1, and it's a crossover drill. And it's hard. Well, at least for me as a 41-year-old starting to play hockey, but it's this where you got to do one step, two step to the right or left, wherever you're starting, and then one step back. And it can be so, it's like, it kind of reminds me of life, because it's like, it can feel that way sometimes where you make this, but guess what? I'm still moving forward. I'm still getting to the line. I'm still getting to the end of the exercise. It might take me a little bit longer. Man, it teaches me to practice patience. The sport of hockey in general teaches me to practice patience, but it's a drill. And I believe that's it too. Like, if you're doing one thing, I imagine people want to do so much and then they try to do it all at once, and that's where like failure can come. But if you're trying to do so many things at once, that's fine. I'm not gonna tell you how to do things. It might work for you, but say you can't do all those things in one day, don't beat yourself up. Say if you did one of those things, say if you never read, like for example, I'm working with a client who has struggle reading. So I said, could you read 10 minutes a day? Yeah, I could do that. Okay, let's try it. And then they like, oh man, I didn't get 10 and I only got 5. Well, how much did you read the day before that? None. Well, then you improved, right? Because you read 5 minutes versus 0. And so, like, I had a client here. I'll give you one more example of a physical thing. I have a new client teaching her movement patterns. She's got some pretty awesome goals, and she was beating herself up during the training session because she just felt like she wasn't doing good enough. And I was like, well, what'd you do yesterday for movement? Nothing. I sat at a desk for 8 hours. Okay, what'd you do the day before that? Same. What'd you do last week? Nothing. Okay, so you're doing better. You're doing more in 1 day or 1 hour than you have done in 2 weeks. That's improvement. So don't beat yourself up. If you just came in here and walked through the door and we did 5 jumping jacks, that'd still be more than the day before. So it's just perspective, and think about it. If you're doing one thing, and you hit the nail on the head. Man, like I said, we could talk forever and ever. And you've mentioned so many nuggets of joy, gold on here, and I appreciate you for it. Is there one, maybe two, but one or more thing that we haven't really talked on before we get off here to aid in the people that are listening to help them strive today?
Yeah, I want to quickly touch the final piece of the serenity prayer, because we talked about serenity and courage, and then the wisdom to understand the difference. And one of those things is that if you beat yourself up because you only did 5 minutes, that's not exercising your wisdom to understand that you did do better. The wisdom happens through experience and through accountability, support. See how all these motifs seem to repeat, and just find the same origin. Again, I'm going to use that word. That's really why we named our business.
Self-promotion, brother. It's okay, man. You got a good thing going, doing good things for people coming up. Man, totally share it.
Yeah. And I guess just lastly, I want to throw that challenge out officially and say, if you're listening and you're somebody who is on your phone within the first 30 minutes of your day, which is pretty much everybody, let's even give it a week. Give yourself a week to develop the routine of doing something else, setting the environment up for that, and creating some accountability for yourself. That's really where it circles back for me. And that will start to develop some serenity in your life so that you can exercise courage and wisdom and grow better every day.
Yeah, I love it. So this just came to me, and you can argue it if you'd like. What if we, for your challenge, I love the challenge, by the way. I think it's great. It's simple because people can insert anything there. Gives them the option. What if we change the word challenge to encouragement? Thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean,
I encourage you.
We did already talk about language. How about I invite you?
Ooh, see, this is why I love you, man. I invite you. Man, we could do this all day, right? I'm trying to come up with another one. I encouragely invite you. I like the invite. I say either way. If you guys like challenge, there's people that work well with challenges. I would say insert a word that's going to get you up to do that thing, that challenge, that encouragement, that invitation for yourself. Remember, this is for you. This isn't for me. This isn't for Kurt. It might be to improve your relationship with your wife and kids. So that's on the table, which is awesome. Or a significant other, or an important relationship in your life. So invite yourself, encourage, and get that accountability. That's going to be huge. And I would even add, write it down where you can see it. And as a positive is like, you can do this. You guys can do this. You ladies, you whoever's just listening to this, young or old. Anything else you'd like to share though, Kurt? This was awesome. This is so much fun, man. I miss your face, brother.
Yeah, I'm good, bro. I miss you too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Yeah. Do that. Say what?
I just appreciate you having me on.
Oh, for sure, man. Anytime. I'm sure there'll be another one because we can talk more. But yeah, we're going to provide some show notes here with how you can reach out to him, especially in Florida or if you're ever down there, because what him and Chad and Melissa are doing it looks pretty awesome. I know when I go down there, I'll definitely have to check it out. But thanks for tuning in to Strive 365. We hope you enjoyed this. And if so, give it a thumbs up, a like, a share, because it's not about you. It's about getting this out there to help other people around the world. Thank you very much. Take care.